Welcome to the Divorce Devil Podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Rachel. Follow us as we dive into all the positive and negatives of post-divorce recovery. Stay tuned for some real and sometimes raw end-of-the-road divorce topics. Please put on your big pants because we're full of honesty, authenticity, and irrefutable truths.
This progressive podcast ain't for the faint-hearted. Enjoy. So we are a different kind of divorce recovery podcast. If you listen to any of our episodes, we have a lot of fun. We've been through the pains of divorce, the struggles of divorce, and this is episode 86.
Yes.
86.
But we have some in the side pockets. I don't know what numbers.
Yeah. And so what we try to convey to our listeners and viewers, because we're on YouTube too, which is kind of scary. We try to convey, like it's not the end of the world, even though you think it's going to be the end of the world. It's, what do you say, Rachel? It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm from Jersey originally, so I have no filter. I don't know. Have you listened to any of our podcasts?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to explain it. So, we just say what's from the heart, and a lot of it comes from having the pain, and a lot of it comes from, I think we both have learned that laughter really is a great medicine. It's not the only medicine because, like I've said before in some of the podcasts, that I laugh inappropriately.
I love it.
Probably as a nurse is not great. Like, oh, you broke your leg. You're a dumbass. But I can fix that. And I work in elementary school, so it's. I'm like, really? That's how you hurt yourself? Okay, cool. But I think we've learned too that, no one has all the answers, and, we're kind of winging it, but we've come, just from talking when we first started it, we have similar takes on it, and, definitely different types of divorces, and, just trying to help people out. So,
yeah, I've been divorced 11 years and she's been divorced 2. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of a newbie.
July 23rd, 2 years.
It's still just a little raw for her. Me, it's kind of mundane, but there's always something I think that always reminds you or kind of trips your trigger, like maybe like a certain food you used to eat, or maybe like a certain song you used to have together. So there's always something that it kind of stirs up later.
Sure.
So
sure. Yeah. Well,
all right. Let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
So let's go and get started. Welcome everybody out there to Divorce Devil episode 86. We have a special guest on the mic today with me and Rachel. We have AJ Grossman out of Florida, correct?
Yes.
In Florida. Let me pull the stuff up. I had it before, and there it goes.
I was born in Tampa. Woohoo, welcome.
I love Tampa.
That's what's wrong with you. Now I know.
Shut the hell up.
Okay. So AJ is a divorce dispute resolution specialist. Can you go into that and tell us what that is, AJ?
Sure. So I have my law degree, and I also have a degree after my law degree. It's called a Master of Laws in Dispute Resolution. So that allows me to call myself a dispute resolution specialist. So I focus my law practice 100% on divorce and paternity work. But with that extra degree, I'm able to help my clients in a way that none of my colleagues can. And so that extra degree was 1 year full-time study out at Pepperdine University in Malibu, California, at an institute called the Strauss Institute for Dispute Resolution. And so during that 1 year full time, I was able to study with world-renowned practitioners on things like the psychology of conflict. How do people behave and manage and make decisions when they're in the middle of conflict? And we studied conflict from divorce to cultural conflicts to conflicts between countries, public policy disputes between communities, all kinds of things. So I'm more than just a divorce lawyer.
So what made you specialize in divorce? I stole yours, David.
So
and then he's like, I'm going to take it. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to get that.
I love that question because it's really ironic. So growing up, my mom had gone to law school in the early 70s, and my dad had followed her and went to law school as well. They both took the California bar and passed the bar. My mom practiced, but my dad didn't. And one of the areas she practiced was family law, divorce work. And I remember growing up, and she would get phone calls on the weekends, and she would complain. She said, one of my clients just called and told me that their spouse is throwing their clothes out the front door and they want me to do something. What am I supposed to do on the weekends? Or they never pay their bills, or they're always upset. They're never satisfied. And so I heard these complaints, and I thought, when I was getting ready to go to law school, I thought, okay, I don't know what kind of law I want to practice, but I know what I don't want to practice. I don't want to practice divorce work because it sounds like a hell gig. It just does not sound good at all. And so I got to law school, and I took a family law class, and my particular school had a clinic there that helped people from a lower socioeconomic class get divorces and help for their children. And so I did work there, and I soon learned that this was a niche for me, that I was able to relate to people, to connect with people, to talk with them in a way where I could actually help calm them down a little bit and help give them hope for the future. And I thought, you know what, I can really make a difference here. And so fast forward a little bit, and my wife and I both took the Florida bar. We both passed. We kind of looked at each other and said, okay, what do we do now? We sent out a bunch of resumes, didn't get any responses. So we said, let's open up our own practice. We said, well, what do we want to do? And I think I said, well, what do we know how to do? And she said, well, family law and divorce. I said, then that's what we're going to do.
There you go. So one of my questions, and I've been harboring this for a while. So is your practice more so the man and the woman, or is it two parties, or do you work with one party most of the time?
So as a lawyer, I am prohibited from representing both a husband and wife in a divorce. Okay. So I can only represent one, and I really have a mix. Wives, husbands, lesbian, gay couples, you name it. So I don't specialize in one gender or one sexual orientation over another. I take everyone.
Mm-hmm. All right, Rachel. But actually, I'm going to trump Rachel again. So my other question is, when you have the domestic goddess at home, and then you have the man that works away from home, and she's been raising the kids, how do you equal that? How do you solve that problem? Because that's a big divide.
That is,
and that's kind of what happened to me. That was a huge divide.
Okay. Basically, how do you value both partners without devaluing somebody else?
Right,
correct.
Right. So my role is to, and the mission, my own personal mission and the mission of Leapfrog Divorce is to help people transition their families from one type of a family to a different type of family through the divorce process while minimizing harm to themselves and their children, and providing zealous and aggressive advocacy when necessary. And so when I'm working with a client, and I'll say I'm working with the domestic goddess, as you put it, and the husband is on the other side, and he's the primary breadwinner. So I do everything I can to communicate that these are two equal partners. A marriage takes two equal people, and when they decide, when the spouses decide to have children and they become parents, it takes two. Whether that's a mom and a mom, a dad and a dad, or a dad and a mom, it takes two. And so a mom who stays at home to raise the children has provided a tremendous amount of value, not only for their children, but for the husband, because she has freed him to be able to go to work and do his job and earn an income and go to meetings or to happy hours, to networking events, to travel the country for his job. And he would not have been able to do that without the help and support of his wife, who's staying home to help raise their children. So there's a tremendous amount of value there. And when you start talking about issues in a divorce like alimony or spousal support, at least here in Florida, that's one of the specific factors that our judges, our courts are supposed to consider. the value that a stay-at-home mom has brought to the marriage. So that's what I do.
So can she charge like Uber rates, taxi services? Like now you have like DoorDash. I mean, I'm pretty sure those people make some money. So yeah, I wasn't the big breadwinner. I also had a job, but then my job became less important. So anytime something happened with the kids, well, we're getting divorced, so you have to do this because I have to make money because you're going to take my money. Or, there was a lot of negatives brought to my not lesser of a job, but what was perceived as you're the mom, you need to take care of this part while I go do the big boy stuff. And, there's also stay-at-home dads and the mom goes out and works.
Yep.
So it's
Correct.
not one or the other is more important. But when you're going through it and you're in the heat of all that, a lot of times the one that stays home is put to the side because you're not as important because you're only watching the kids, or you're only doing this. You're only the taxi service. You're only the person that takes them to the doctors and does all the other stuff. Why, the other spouse is doing, bringing in the money to pay for the bills and all the other stuff. So I think there's a fine line of how do you value, the Uber, the grocery shopper, the sports, getting kids back and forth to sports. And now when you have two families, who's more responsible if you have the kid for 3 days and I have the kid for 3 days and there's a half a day when we both split. I mean, it really does take a lot of communication. And I think one of the big things is like who's right. And that's a lot of the
Doesn't matter.
Exactly. And so do you have like, I guess, a checklist where people can be like, okay, you can definitely go through mediation, or no, you definitely need a lawyer, or where do you start when you have someone come to you? Because I think a lot of times you're like, I can't afford a lawyer. My spouse can, because now he makes all the money and is holding money from me. And again, if you've listened to us, I at one point had $27 in the bank and thinking I had a lot more. And, he lawyered up and I was like, well, I don't even know how to do that. I don't even know where I go. And I can't afford a retainer and I can't afford this. And can we do mediation? And there was times where it's like, yes, we can do mediation. And then it's, oh, he's also lawyered up. And then now what do I do? So I
All
don't
right, Rachel,
know.
breathe,
No,
Rachel.
this is just because it's personal. Like,
I know.
where do you start?
Okay. So with everybody, I guess let me back up a little bit. I start with providing a ton of free information. So I've got a YouTube channel that's got, 70 or 80 videos on it. I'm releasing about one a week, and I'm just providing a ton of information for people to learn about their options, how to communicate better, how alimony works, all kinds of things. So that's where I start, by providing free information. When somebody actually finds me online or gets referred to me and I have an opportunity to talk with them, I think I do things very different from other divorce lawyers in that I have a conversation with them about human things. So for example, one of the first questions I'll ask is, tell me what's keeping you up at night. What's causing you to lose sleep? And what have you done to try and make your situation better? And how has that worked out for you? If you could wave a magic wand and your situation became your ideal situation, what would that look like? Or if you had a movie running through your mind of your ideal divorce or what your family looks like after the divorce, tell me about that. What am I going to see in that movie? And so that's where I start, by asking people about human things, where I think a lot of divorce lawyers, they really want to focus on the facts and the law. So they start out with things like, okay, so do you own your home or do you rent? How many children do you have? Do you have any retirement? Okay, how much money is in your bank accounts? And what do you do for a living? What is your income? And I'll get to all those things because they are important. But I really want to know about people from a human perspective first. So that's where I start.
Yeah, that's way different.
That's awesome.
Way different.
And I think the word lawyer just in itself is intimidating.
Scary. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes.
What do you do when you have a client that's not really within the best interest of themselves or their kids? How do you try to steer them, or do you try to counsel them? Because you're also a counselor. you're a lawyer and a counselor. So how do you handle that?
So I take my counselor role very seriously. Many of my colleagues do not want to deal with emotions or feelings or practical aspects about, taking care of oneself. And that's absolutely a road I will go down. I make sure to remind my clients I'm not a therapist. And as a matter of fact, I highly recommend that you get a therapist for yourself. And if you have children, consider getting a therapist for the children, because a divorce is the second most stressful process you will likely ever experience in your entire lifetime, right below the loss of a loved one. And therapy can be incredibly helpful. Build up your support network with family, friends, coworkers. So if I've got somebody who is behaving badly, maybe they've got some substance abuse issues, maybe they don't communicate very well, then I will actually try and help coach them on how to communicate better. For example, a lot of people will volley blame back and forth and just defend. Well, you said this and I felt this way. And well, you said that, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. Or like Rachel, you were saying, you're only the stay-at-home mom and I'm the man. And and it's like, stop doing that. You need to find a better way to communicate because it hasn't worked for you yet. So have you tried inviting your spouse or your significant other, whatever it happens to be, to a learning conversation where you get to sit down with them and actually hear what they have to say? No.
Right.
Well, you might try it. Just go to them and say, you know what, I think you would agree with me that we've had a lot of conflict between us recently. And I really want to sit down and hear more about how you see what's been happening between us and hear where you're coming from. And just sit and listen. Don't defend, don't blame, don't point the fingers, just listen. So that's one of the things I'll do with people who need help communicating. For people who have a gambling addiction or an alcohol addiction, I always suggest that they get help. I have a client who has a gambling addiction, and he doesn't see it that way. I'm not his therapist, but what I can say is, say something to him like, we've talked quite a lot. We've been working together for 6 or 7 months now, and I've heard you talk about your gambling. And I just wanted to find out from you what you've done to maybe explore some avenues to get you help, because I heard you share with me that you want to stop, but you can't find the ability to stop. And that might need somebody outside of yourself and outside of me to help you. So what do you think about that? So it's really counseling and coaching.
Yep.
That's
There's not any lawyers in this town like you, I don't think.
No.
Not even close.
No, and I think a lot of times too, when in the beginning of divorce, especially, those conversations are very hard to just pull out of your spouse because everybody's so angry and so emotional. Yeah. And I mean, we advocate like, please do not put your kids in the middle. And, it's hard, especially when you have someone yelling at you all the time and you're like, okay, well, I do nothing right. Nothing I do is right. And then you get in this like whole, it's snowball effect. Now I'm pissed off at you because you did this. I'm pissed off at this person. And now you're telling me I have to, get a lawyer, or I can't afford a lawyer. So now I know I feel like I'm screwed and I have no way out of this situation. And if you left or if you were left, there's different feelings on those. So, it really is like, how do you learn these? I mean, of course, now we know we can go to your YouTube thing, your site and stuff like that.
Which we'll post on the,
we will,
the site.
Add to the link. But like, I feel like that first step is, shit, I'm getting divorced. And who's going to help me? Or especially like people who have cheated or have caused the divorce are like, oh, I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. Well, we want to take that stigma away. Yes, cheating fucking sucks, right? Mm-hmm. But we want to take the stigma of, okay, now we're getting divorced. We know we're not going to be married anymore. Where do we go and where do we turn? And how do we make this amicable or, again, mediation or, what? And so I think that's really awesome that you do that.
How do you decrease the co-parenting, the craziness of co-parenting? That was one of the things I dealt with.
Okay.
What's some of the methods and tips and tricks for that?
Okay. So one of the things that seems to come up quite frequently with co-parenting goes again back to communication. So what happens a lot is people will, or one parent will fire off a text message, something like, "You're such an idiot. You forgot to pack Johnny's shoes. You know he has soccer practice today. You dumbass." Right? What is that? What is that?
Text I got.
You.
I feel like maybe I said that.
So how do I help those people? Well, what I say is, instead of firing off that text message, just pause, take a deep breath, take 5 minutes to sit in peace and think about, what do I need to communicate? What don't I need to communicate? And how can I minimize any emotions in this text? Because really all I need to do is communicate information. And there's a wonderful gentleman out in Southern California. His name is Bill Eddy. He was a licensed clinical social worker for many years and then became a divorce lawyer. And he's got a whole series of books on high conflict personalities and how to communicate better. And he was actually one of my professors out at Pepperdine. And he has an acronym that he uses. It's BIFF, B-I-F-F, for better communications. And what he says is, be brief, be informative, be friendly, and be firm. So what that looks like with Johnny or Billy or whoever it is, the child with the soccer shoes, that communication would be, "I noticed that Billy does not have his soccer shoes. Would you like to bring them over, or shall I go out and purchase new ones? And would you split the cost of those with me 50-50? It takes the emotion out of it. It takes the blame out of it. It takes the judgment out of it. And it's just an information text. But that is so hard for people to do, especially. Yes, especially when you are in this emotional soup of a divorce. And, naturally as human beings, we are emotional, feeling beings first, and we are logical, analytical beings second. So we make decisions based on feelings and emotions, and then we justify those with logic and analysis. So when we need to respond, right, our nerves are doing jazz hands, right? And we're starting to sweat, and our heart starts pumping faster, and our blood pressure starts to rise. That's when you have to hit the pause button. Take a deep breath, take 5 minutes, wait. Maybe type out that text message, but don't send it. Just let it sit.
Oh, thank God. Delete, backspace, and
delete is the best.
Our favorite is K.
K.
Uh-huh.
K. Double, super K.
Double
capital
K.
Triple
K.
Lots of Ks.
Uh-huh. That's good.
Then that definitely does take practice, because I have written full-on novels. Like, they should have probably been an email. But, yeah, no. I'm just like, crap.
Yeah.
And again, that send button is a powerful thing.
Sure is.
You have the control, but sometimes when you're in the midst of, I can't believe he said that.
But sometimes you want to hurt them so bad.
Mm-hmm.
You want to cause pain by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wrong. That's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
especially when you use the kids.
Well, I think we've discussed this before too. There is, like, when you go through, in Colorado, we have to take a 4-hour parenting class when you sign up for divorce. Okay. You got to figure it out.
Yep.
Then you got like 75 pages of all the shit, right? So who makes what who are they going to spend for Christmas? All the stuff.
Right.
They give you this like app that the communications will be back and forth, and anything you say and can will be used against you in a court of law.
Right.
So, I feel like the faster you know about that, because I feel like that's almost like someone's got your back when you feel like no one's got your back,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're just in it. Like if you haven't had a court date yet, if you haven't had a hearing, if you haven't even turned your paper in, you're doing this child course, like as soon as you hand it in, they're like, okay, now you need to take this because you have kids. So it's like the calm before the storm. And now anything I say, someone could read this in a court of law.
Right.
So
right.
I think that gives you that, oh, the principal's watching, so it has helped a lot of people communicate and, and then eventually like, okay, we can communicate now. Or, my ex and I have really tried to do a good job with our youngest, especially. It's about him and he didn't ask for this. And, he's only ever known us together. Like our older kids, like they've had 20 some years of us together and he's only had, 8. So we try to do a good job, but I know that text like, oh yeah. And I'm going to get you back now. You've hurt my feelings.
Tit for tat.
I'm offended. Let's figure this out. And oh, by the way, you're an asshole.
Yep. You know what it is? It's a short-term gain, right? We get this pleasure hit by filling out that text and hitting the send button, and we're exchanging that for long-term pain.
And I think
dopamine and send.
Yep.
I think too, if early on when we started the podcast, I was just mad. I was angry because I kept finding more stuff out, and then like doing like forensic financial stuff, and all of a sudden I'm like, how did I not know? And then you feel like an idiot. Well, like I'm going to make you feel like an idiot. And I think what that has all reading back, like going over some of the old texts, I'm like, I actually instigated, and I was like, oh, I'm the good guy. I'm the good guy. I'm the good guy. And you see that you're the good guy. I'm like, oh, well, I just said this back because you said this, and I'm going to tell you how I felt for the last 5 years. And oh, by the way, your mom's an asshole. So, I've had to learn to like mute a little, and that's really, really hard for me because I definitely felt just in leaving, and I felt, now it's my turn to be heard. Yes, I talk a lot, but I don't think I've ever been the active listening thing on the other end was a big deal. And I don't think I've ever been heard. And now that I'm being heard, it's like, oh, look, I do have a voice. And I think when you're going through divorce, who's going to hear me? What, the lawyer just wants my money, or this one, like, I don't have the money. And then are they going to take my car, my house? Like, oh, I don't have that either. So, you want to present yourself. And, again, that lawyer word is very scary and it makes it real.
Yeah. You bring up a really interesting concept, and one that I love, and that is the feeling of being heard. Because as human beings, that's like a core concern or a core need. We need to feel heard and feel valued and acknowledged. And I think that too many people devalue others for a variety of reasons, and they don't do anything to help the other person feel heard. And it's so simple. I mean, it's like elementary, right? I mean, even asking somebody, so tell me what you think. Oh my gosh. It's like, wow, this person really wants to hear what I have to say. And then if the person that
serial dated. That's how David serial dated. Oh, you want to hear? Oh, I got a story for you. Sorry, I interrupt all the time.
No, people just want to be heard. It's like a validation.
Yes.
Yeah. People want to be validated.
Yes.
And it goes back to value. What's my value in this relationship? Well, now it's broken, so I have no value. Or I failed at this, so my value is nothing. Or I left, so now my value is nothing. But we have to learn that, in a marriage, we always say you get in a marriage to be in a marriage. You don't say, okay, in 17 years, we're getting divorced. There's a lot that goes on.
And I think that's where a lot of people make a mistake when they get married. And I think it has a lot to do with maybe an outdated concept of marriage. I call it like a 1950s nuclear type of idea of marriage where it's a husband and a wife, and the husband is going to go work and the wife is going to be in the kitchen, kind of like Leave It to Beaver, right? And one of the big problems is that we still have this idea that people need to get married super young. And the problem with that I see in working with divorce clients is that the people I'm working with, they don't have good self-esteem. They don't have a good idea of what their self-worth is and their self-value. And I think that takes time and life experience to learn what your value is, to get a strong sense of self, to be able to look internal and say, I've got this. No matter what happens, I have got this. So instead, we've got young people getting into a marriage, thinking they know what it's all about, and they're looking to that other person to give them what it is they need, when they should be looking inward and saying, I've got everything I need, and I'm just choosing to be with this other partner because I love them.
Yeah, I love that, because it took me 45 years to be like, wait, I have an opinion. Oh, wait, there's people that actually value what I have to say. And I think I thought I was healed and figured out who I was. And then I started the podcast, and again, my co-host, I don't know if you've met him, he calls me out a lot. And so I think when we are able to, again, communicate and ask each other and feed off of each other, and have guests like this who, absolutely are beyond my realm. I'm a nurse. I fix the physical body, and the emotional comes with it, especially working with little kids and on a military base, and there's a lot of separation, and then there's a lot of divorce because dad's deployed or mom's deployed, and dad, someone's not being fulfilled or heard. There is a lot of divorce on military bases. And there's a lot of other stuff too, but that's another podcast. But I think a lot of it goes to saying, I am myself, valued by myself.
Yep.
You and my partnership with my co-host, my cohorts at work, my relationship, everybody should value themselves so that they can value what they have. And we talk about that a lot on this. And, at 45, I was like, hey, this isn't where I want to be. This doesn't make me happy. This isn't mine. And you have to be selfish a little bit, and you have to, it's self-care. So it's right in the words. So we need to learn to be more self-caring and loving, and then you can give all of yourself to your partner. And I know the divorce rate is really, really high. I hope it settles a little, because marriage is great when it's great and both people are respected and, 100% on each end. And, I don't think it's 50-50. I think you're 100, you're 100. Some days you may need a little bit more from your partner, but, y'all should be 100% of yourself. And if you're having a bad day, if that person can help fulfill that, 10% that's missing, that's a lot less to have to give 50% of you, so we need to balance each other out more.
I've got a poignant question for AJ.
Oh no, here it comes. Okay.
So you've been practicing for how long? How many years?
About 12 years now.
12 years. In those 12 years, how many have you had second repeat offenders and third repeat offenders?
David's asking for a friend.
No, I'm not.
So I'm going to answer this in two ways. So one is, I have never, as far as I can remember, I've never had a previous client get divorced, get married, and then come back to me and say, I want you to handle my second divorce or my third divorce. And the second part of my answer is, I have had clients who have had multiple divorces, 4, 5, 9, 10. Yes.
What's the biggest number? 10?
I would say 10. Yeah.
10 divorces.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
That's a serial divorcer.
But what that speaks to, that speaks to AJ, that he kind of stops it. He makes them figure out who they are and what they want out of that last divorce.
Specialty to
That's
divorce
awesome.
lawyer.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Counseling and asking the real people. I think that a lot of times too, asking the real human, like you said, questions. That's so different, because we've all seen all the lawyer movies, and it's like, we're gonna kill him in court. Okay, well, I just want to get a divorce. So,
right.
And again, I am not shy, but I'm intimidated I think I'm intimidated by the word lawyer, just because all the times I've dealt with one, it's been, I'm in trouble, someone else is trouble, like it's divorce stuff, of course, or this one did that, or it's generally the most stressful thing when you have a lawyer involved. So we got to make it less scary. And I think that you're doing a great job of that.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
You have that human component.
Yeah.
And I want to maybe
I'm swimming.
Not say that AJ is wrong, but man, sometimes get divorced, I think, is worse than losing a family member.
Sometimes.
Well, you lose them and
Yeah.
they're still
Yeah.
available. They're
Yeah.
still alive.
Yeah,
they're still there.
They're still there, but they're dead to you.
Yeah.
So
And all the
it's
what
like an
ifs.
active death.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
You have to, you have, because you have to interact them with the things that you thought you were going to be with them, like weddings and having grandchildren or whatever, all the stuff you've had to grieve them, but they're still there. So you have to grieve them multiple times. Whereas if someone passes away, you're grieving them occasionally, like a birthday or an anniversary or a holiday, where this is a daily thing.
Constant
You're like,
reminder, bam, bam.
yeah. So
I tell my clients quite often, even though you're getting a divorce, you have children together, so you're always going to be mom and dad. You're going to see each other at birthday parties. You're going to see each other at graduation events. You God forbid, you might see each other at a funeral. But you're always going to be mom and dad. And do you want to have a lifelong parenting relationship that's good, or one that totally sucks because you have the power to change it if you want to change it?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like I can speak, like literally yesterday, my daughter, who's 21, she went to college her freshman year, and she keeps remembering that we told her on our way to college. We both remember her coming back for Thanksgiving. She was realizing that things were different. We said, hey, we need to have a family discussion. She just remembers the world being ripped out from under her, like first day. So we have a different view of that. So when kids are involved, if we can make that the easiest as possible, because I have an 11-year-old who's like, I got to go to this house. I got to, do I have clothes at both? Like school starting, who's buying this? Who's doing this? And I got a 21-year-old mad at us because we ruined her first year of college because she believes that we told her that day, which we both were like, that was like Thanksgiving. She came home but I can't tell her that she's wrong because that's what she remembers. But I can say, hey, we got divorced so you can see what a healthy relationship is supposed to look like. Because there was a lot of fighting the last 5 years. 2 years divorce, 3 years just arguing all the time. And I said, I don't want you to think from our modeling that this is how it's supposed to be. And we are friends to a point, but we are also like, these are the facts. This is what we need to get done. We're picking you up this time. Here's the schedule. And it's very like matter of factly. And of course, if something happens, like we just had a friend pass away and we were talking to the friend's family and all this other stuff. And we came together as a old couple. We were a couple at one point when we knew this person. And, it was comforting to our kids that we resolved and told them together, like, hey, our friend passed away. You've had lots of memories. And my daughter said to me today, she goes, I didn't realize how much I caused you to have to put out all the fires. And she goes, I'm sorry for that. And I'm learning from that. And like, she stressed me out for the last 3 days going, you did this and blah, blah, blah. So the blame game is great. But I think when she pulled it all apart, she was like, thank you for getting along for us. Wow. So if anybody can learn that from my 21-year-old, who's sometimes a pain in my ass.
That's their job.
But I love her. And she's just dealing with, she's going back to college, 2 households, dad's got a new girlfriend, I've had a relationship for 2.5 years and other kids Lance's daughter's going to college. Another one got her first job out of college. So there's a lot of events happening and
life does go on.
Yeah.
She just needed to feel like my parents can get along to take care of me. And I keep conveying that, like, people just don't bring the kids in on it. So, and what do you say to people who can't? Like,
yeah, definitely. What do you say?
What do I say to people who can't leave their kids out of it?
Yeah.
I
use them as pawns.
I say you need to get a therapist ASAP, and you need a therapist for your kids, because if you find that you are incapable or unable to leave your kids out of the messiness of your relationship breakup with your spouse, you are causing unnecessary harm for your children that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives. I said there are plenty of studies out there that conclusively show that children of divorce do not do as well as children who were either had divorced parents and left out of the process or had parents that stayed together. I'm sure you've heard of ACE scores, right? Childhood experiences, right? Adverse childhood experiences. Divorce is one of the numbered items on that list. And so I ask them, I say, you have a choice. You have control and you have decision-making power to either help your kids get through this healthy or to set your children up for possibly lifelong anger and depression and bitterness. Which would you like to choose? Which do you think your children would say they would like to choose? So I have a very frank conversation with them, and some of them will listen to me and some of them won't.
So what do you do when you have a parent who's a narcissist and they do no wrong, and
that's got to be tough.
That a lot of people, when they talk to us about it or they listen to the podcast, are like, I just can't get them to listen to me. It's all about them. They're right. And a lot of times when you are married to a narcissist, you are the other person is submissive because they don't want to fight. Mm-hmm. But now this is the fight for your life. So how do you help people on the other end of a narcissist?
So what I tell them is the first rule is never engage a narcissist. You will never be right. The second thing is you need to leave, and you need to leave ASAP. Because if your spouse is a true narcissist, that is a dangerous situation that you need to get out of and protect yourself. And so some of the strategies that I will use with narcissists when I have them as an opposing party is I will do everything in my power to make them think that they're right. That any ideas about options was actually their idea. I will compliment them as much as I can. Oh, that's a great question. Let me help provide an answer for that. Or, oh, that was really astute of you. Let me talk about that. Because if I take the opposite approach and I say, you don't know what you're talking about, no, that just throws fuel on the fire, on the flames.
Wow.
So they're a special breed.
You play that mind game.
Yeah.
Got anything else?
What about, and my second to final question will be, what about, your website talks about strategy sessions. Does it happen at the beginning, in the middle, toward the end, and what are they?
So a strategy session is my term for an initial consultation. So when I talk with people and I ask them those very human questions, what keeps you up at night? What does your ideal divorce look like? What do you hope to accomplish through your divorce? I will towards the end of that strategy session, I will talk with them about various options. For example, if somebody says, I really want to have an amicable divorce, my spouse and I can continue to communicate, we're pretty agreeable on things, is there a process available that can help us have a good divorce and be good co-parents afterwards? Well, absolutely. And here's the strategy, right? So collaborative divorce, whatever. So there's a strategy that goes along with that. So strategy sessions start from the very beginning. When a client actually chooses me and says, I want you to be my lawyer, we have strategy sessions throughout the case because oftentimes new information will come in or an event will happen that will actually cause us to shift a little bit. Maybe change our strategy a little bit. We've got more information now that we're 6 months into this case than we had at the beginning. We need to revisit our strategy and come to an agreement. Does this still make sense based upon this new information? So it's a constant evaluation, reevaluation, and adjusting. It's an organic strategy, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I decided to get divorced. I find you on your website or wherever, recommended by Divorce Devil Podcast. What are the most important things that I know when I come to meet you?
The most important things to know would be what are the top 3 issues or problems you are having that you think a divorce is going to solve, right? Or 3 goals, your top 3 goals that you want to accomplish through a divorce. The second thing is, what does your ideal situation look like, both going through the divorce and after the divorce? Is it an amicable process? Are you anticipating a highly litigated process? And regardless of which one it is, what do you want your family to look like at the end? So those are the two top things that I want people to know. Some other things that are pretty easy are things like, incomes, because we will talk about incomes. What are your respective incomes? Tell me about your debt. Tell me about your assets. Do you have a lot of credit card debt? And a lot of people I talk to say, I just don't know. He does all the finances, and I just don't know.
Rachel in the house. Rachel in the house.
Yeah.
That's life. Being ignorant, I guess.
Yeah. And the last thing I want people to have some sense of, not everybody does, but it's helpful, is what kind of a lawyer are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody who's going to put on the boxing gloves from day one and just fight 100% the whole way through? Is that what you think you need? If so, help me understand why. Or do you want somebody who's going to take maybe a more compassionate, cooperative approach, but if things go south, can go toe-to-toe with a lawyer or the person on the other side if there's a need for a trial or a hearing? So, there's a lot of different lawyers out there. Some of us, I'm a trial lawyer. I love to be in court. I love to be in trial. And then there are others who say, I love to negotiate. I love to settle cases. And many of the trial lawyers will say, I hate negotiation. I hate settling cases. I want to be in front of that judge. So think about what kind of lawyer you want.
I actually don't believe I've ever heard the word divorce lawyer and compassion in the same sentence.
I was getting ready to say that. Yes.
I heard you. My brain heard you. I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure those words don't go together. But
that's going to be the title, The Compassionate Lawyer.
There we go.
I love it.
I don't think that word would ever, like, if I had to describe what a lawyer is to a first grader, those aren't the words I would have used.
To a first grader.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because, I am in an elementary school, so I'm trying to figure out how to give them the verbiage. But so that's awesome. And I think, we really lucked out in getting, the compassionate lawyer.
The compassionate lawyer.
We might trademark that. So just let us know. Lawyer,
trademark lawyer for the compassionate lawyer.
I love it.
We'll figure that out. But I'm blown away that
this is way different than what I expected. This is awesome. Yeah,
fantastic.
Awesome. You got to get your facts straight. You need to figure out what your side of the story is. I watched a couple of your YouTubes and what's your financial statement for this year? I've
thought a lot about, when I leave this world, what would I like my tombstone to say, or what would I like people to say at my funeral? And I don't want them to say, he was a great lawyer, he won a lot of cases, and, he divided up a lot of families. Instead, I'd like it to say, he was a lawyer who put peace and love out into the world and helped families transition from one kind of a family to another for the betterment of our community. And so
this guy makes me want to sing a Partridge Family song.
I'm a terrible human and I need to go find myself after talking to a divorce lawyer.
I know.
What? Okay. That's awesome.
The compassionate lawyer. Compassionate lawyer.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, we want to thank AJ for surprising us. It's been a pleasant surprise.
Oh, my pleasure.
We've got one more question, AJ.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Boxer briefs.
That's gonna be briefs.
Briefs. All right. Okay. There we go.
Boxer briefs. I've heard they're comfortable. I mean,
those will work.
Why?
Wait, lawyer.
You don't have to choose.
Lawyer briefs. Hello. Duh.
Hey. Dun dun dun.
Yo, Cyril. All
right. We want to thank AJ for being on the show, man. This was awesome.
That was so informative because I think it's definitely one of those things where it's scary. It's so scary.
Yeah.
And you're already going through the emotions. And so if you can have someone, like you, helping people, and that's right.
There's got to be one more compassionate lawyer out there. We need to find out.
Do you have a group, like a group of compassionate lawyers? What do you call a group of compassionate lawyers?
We're out there. We're out there.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to episode 86.
Sure. We're going to go with that. Yeah.
We'll go from there. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Wow, AJ, that was